You are now tuned into Check This Out News. We connect the streets.
Transition there and what's going on with what's happening?
You know what? It's been fun. You know, I've been at Spotify for I've been an investor for five or 6 years, and I've been inside of the company for probably 16 months or so, and it's been fun. You know, it's like a kid in a candy store because I love music and I love technology. And I'm around some of like the smartest people in the world that are working on things that I deeply care about. So it's been fun, and especially to see the music industry that's been like the same for 100 years finally feel like is moving forward like the rest of the world's moving forward.
How do you think Spotify is going to kind of rectify what happened with the record industry when sales started to drop and then artists weren't getting paid? How do you think Spotify is helping to solve for that?
You know, I think, you know, when you look at the amount that Spotify's paid out over the last, 8 years, and then this year alone is, probably, I think, $5 billion or so, like giving back to the industry. And then I think being, on top of the financial contribution to the industry, being able to, where Spotify has, I think we have 4,500 owned and operated playlists, right?
Yeah.
For all different types of music. And when you look at how hard it is for artists to get on radio and to get your video played in certain places, is only, if you listen to the radio station, it's probably 18 artists, right? That they play over and over and over and over again. And those are big superstars. So it's hard for new artists to kind of get a share of those spots. So to be able to help artists find audiences and things like that, I think, and especially on a global level, I think has been helpful to the industry.
Awesome. And so from my perspective, I'm very curious in terms of where you are with your investments. What do you see in the future? What is hot? What's trending? What do you feel like people should look toward?
The future, I think is very bright and very scary at the same exact time, because I think technology's moving faster than humankind can keep up with. And especially America's not prepared for the technological changes that are ahead in terms of artificial intelligence and robotics and things in that space that I think are going to be both transformational and destructive to the workforce. So how do we prepare ourselves for what are the next generation of jobs going to be? And I think just looking at what I'm seeing coming down the pipeline, when you look at things like manufacturing, customer service, even things down to driving. I didn't realize driving was one of the number one jobs for, I think it might be the number one job for Caucasian males in America.
Interesting.
Yeah, and those aren't going to exist. It's not going to be jobs there.
Yeah.
So, and when you look at even things down to what Amazon's doing, and this is going to be over the next 36 months, where, you're going to walk into stores, grocery stores, and just walk out. It's not going to be any cashiers.
Yeah.
I met an entrepreneur recently who was showing me these sort of, it was these security guard robots, right, that just kind of roam through parking lots and around retail facilities and apartment facilities. And I said, how much are you selling them for? He said, I'm not selling them. I'm charging, I think it was $10 an hour or whatever. And these things had 360 eyes around its head that, it had facial recognition. It could read license plates. So, and it recharges itself. So soon it's like those little vacuum cleaners that goes back to the base when it runs out. So what he talked about was with security guards, the amount of churn for the security guard workforce. So when you think about insurance, workman's comp, all of those things or whatever, and and also these things are going to be able to alert police officers. Oh, that person stole from the store last time. I'm going to alert the authorities that they were in there. These are the types of things that are coming down the pipeline quickly. And so I do think us as Americans and as entrepreneurs and things like that, I think we have to walk that balance of what is going to be, what's the right thing to do for growth in terms of, financial opportunity, but also what's our social responsibility and what's our social contract with each other, is that going to be the right thing for our country if we're getting rid of hundreds of thousands of jobs, millions of jobs?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. What do you think? Like, where do you see those people being displaced, or what do you think is going to happen?
I think we have to have a balance, and this is where the relationship between the public and the private sector have to strike some sort of balance, because I think there's a mentality in Silicon Valley where it's and Wall Street, by the way, where it's grow at all costs, and it's move fast and break things. Yeah. And it's, just this whole sort of ethos that I don't think we're actually taking our fellow citizens and brothers and sisters and our kids and grandkids into consideration as we're thinking about some of these things that are coming down the pipeline. Yeah. And I'm not saying, we should overregulate or not be competitive with other countries when it comes to certain things. But I do think there are serious long-term repercussions that we are going to have to take into consideration as these things move quickly.
That is definitely something to think about.
But before our whole country looks like Detroit.
Right. Wow.
So Brian Krzanich has been at Intel for 35 years. He's been the CEO for coming up on 5 years. Brian, come on out. We're going to get right to it. You are an engineer's engineer. You ran the chip fab business for quite a while before becoming CEO. You've also made a lot of interesting moves on the diversity front, in particular, over the past 4+ years. So let's start there.
Okay.
You kind of scared me coming in the door when you announced this policy that went farther than I had seen any major company in Silicon Valley do up to that point, where, correct me if I'm wrong here in how I phrased it, but you basically said, I don't expect Intel, to look exactly like the demographics of the United States, but in individual job categories, I expect us to try to match that job category. So how many African Americans are there who are electrical engineers in the workforce?
So the way we're doing this is we take each job category, so like an entry-level engineer, a mid-level engineer, senior engineer, senior manager, and we look at the available population of African Americans, of Native Americans, of Hispanic, and say we're going to go match that number set. The government publishes that data each year. Mm-hmm. And so we started with this gap of about 2,500 people at all various levels. And we're down to about 800 now in various positions. And we've learned a lot. What we've learned is there's plenty of availability. This room is a great example that there's plenty of availability. we've also now, for the last year and a half or so, published not just our pay by gender, but we now publish our pay by ethnicity too, to make sure that that is in alignment. And I think for us, the key lesson we've learned is there's plenty of access to talent. That if you're out looking, anybody who tells you that there's not an availability of African American engineers or Hispanic engineers, they're just wrong. There's plenty.
So then why was there the gap to begin with? What was the key? Was it looking in different places? Was it putting out a different message?
A bit of both of those plus one. So absolutely, we built relationships with historically black universities, areas where there's a large Hispanic population. Probably the one that we've had to go and move into more diverse areas is the Native American. Where are the Native American engineers graduating from? Ends up there's a large population in places like the Northwest, Washington State, Oregon. So one is go where the population is. Uh-huh. Two is probably the two biggest things we've learned is, we kind of have this saying, like likes like. And so if you send a bunch of white male people, engineers, out to interview, you come back with the qualified candidates are all white male individuals. You send a diverse team out there to do the interviews, and you come back with a complete different population. Huh. So we shifted who gets to make decisions about hiring, and we're starting to make decisions like that about how you make promotions, too. And it's, there's this neuroscience thing that you're very comfortable with people who are like you, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's a bias that we all have biases. You have a bias, I have a bias.
Sure.
Just accept it and move on. Always try and get better, but also understand you have it. And the only way then to end up with diverse environments is you have to use diverse population. And that means you don't want all engineers interviewing. You want some people who are not engineers. So you look at the social aspect of the person you're interviewing. Can they communicate? You want women, you want men, you want people of color. You want a good mix of people in there doing these decisions. That shifted our whole population.
Now, in some ways, it seems like the recruiting could be the easy part, because once you come back with these diverse candidates that the other recruiters didn't come back with, there's going to be some population within the company that says, oh, well, they must not be qualified. So show me that these people are really performing, and then I'll believe it. How have you navigated the cultural challenge once you get these qualified, diverse candidates in the door of bringing the entire organization along to embracing that?
Yeah, so I think you run into two problems. One is just, we'll call it skepticism, right? People just saying, well, this person didn't come from the school that I went to, or whatever. They don't look or act like me. So in that, what we've done is just really drive, a very transparent thing around, here were their skills, here who they are, and let people talk to them. Let them meet these people so that they really start to build a relationship. So that building the relationship has broken down a lot of those barriers. But that said, the other thing we've had to do, and I'd say this is the part that we're still learning, is that once you get these people in, like a good engineer, I talk about the pipe that we have now coming into our building of a diverse population is plenty big. We can hire these people. It leaks once it gets inside the building. Mm. So we set another goal that said the number of people leaving the company in these categories, women and people of color, needs to be, we measure it, and we want to drive it to be less than what the overall population is. And what that has forced is for us to really take a look at our policies, how we promote people, who looks at the promotions, how we look at that, and even how we just interact as an organization. Because people who come from the South, moving to Silicon Valley, don't act like people who graduated from Stanford. They don't have the same mannerisms. They don't talk